July 20th, 2025 at exactly 2:22 p.m. We can now see two Humvee vehicles transporting Ukrainian commando units. The vehicles are transporting Ukrainian commandos toward the village of Guyevo in Kursk. However, the Ukrainian commandos in both Humvees are unaware of an 8-25 encounter and a mined road ahead. At the moment when 25 North Korean artillery and infantry troops are positioned in the village of Guyevo near Kursk to infiltrate the Kharkiv-Sumy line, the two Humvees, each carrying an 8-person crew, enter the same village road in silent idle mode. The Humvees were equipped with V-shaped armor plates designed to deflect mine blasts to the sides, and their tires were deflated to distribute weight across the terrain. Additionally, both vehicles had remotely controlled M2A1 and Rada turrets rotating on their roofs. These two Humvees were preparing to carry out a silent raid on the Korean unit's newly established minefield, approaching the field headquarters from the southwest. Inside the Humvees were a vehicle commander, who was likely a captain, a radio operator, a sniper, a support gunner, an infantry pair, and a bomb robot operator. The group was advancing in a mixed formation with two Humvees. All of them had very light composite ballistic plates on their backs, HK-416A7 rifles in front, and one of them had a 7.62mm caliber QBU-10 semi-automatic sniper rifle. Inside the Humvee, a GM-94 bomb launcher-equipped tracked mini-ground vehicle was idling at the feet of one of the Ukrainian commandos. The team's wired, wireless, and satellite communications were connected to a Cisco Kyber tactical modem mounted on the Humvee's chassis. This allowed every tablet inside to display the same screen. The screen likely displayed the route, enemy markers, an electro-optical map, and a signal density chart. The Ukrainian commandos in the Humvees aimed to eliminate the North Korean unit stationed there. However, both Humvees encountered issues while transporting the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces Strela 9 team. The Humvees were deliberately moving at a low speed. As mentioned earlier, it was known that pressure mines had been laid on the roads around the village of Guyevo by North Korean volunteers. The engine speed did not exceed 1,800 RPM, and the tire pressure was set to off-road mode. The Strela 9 had received this information 2 days earlier via a satellite report. The first step of the plan was to cross this minefield with the help of the armor and the Humvee's electronic support system. The Humvee appears to be a standard pickup truck. However, in this model, the underside of the engine compartment is covered with V-shaped reinforced plates that deflect explosive shockwaves to the sides. Both Ukrainian Humvee drivers were adjusting the tire inflation buttons in the cockpit, lowering the thick tires to 25 psi, thereby distributing the weight of the armored hull across the soft ground. Under the hood, a 6.5-liter turbo diesel engine hummed quietly. The Humvee seemed to be holding back its maximum speed potential of 110 kilometers per hour. However, since the mission required stealthy approach and dispersion, speed was not a priority. Silence was. Both Humvees were equipped with Protector RS-4 remotely controlled stations mounted on the roof of the armored vehicle, each carrying a 12.7mm M2A1 machine gun. The weapons were aimed using a thermal camera connected to a closed observation tower, and the operator controlled them via a joystick from the interior. Behind the roof, a Starlink antenna and Radacube mini radar were rotating, continuously updating the situational awareness of the surroundings. The intelligence from the Strela 9 was certain. A 25-person detachment brought from North Korea was waiting at a newly established field headquarters on the Kursk inner line. Following orders from Russian advisors, they were preparing to attempt an infiltration toward Kharkiv and Sumy in the afternoon. Photo reconnaissance indicated that the unit was equipped with typical Korean weapons: Type 58 assault rifles, Type 68B light machine guns, some DP-64 dual-barreled grenade launchers, and several Makarov pistols. More importantly, Korean-made M1989 Koksan howitzers were deployed behind the unit. These 170mm howitzers were renowned for their long range and could rain high explosive shells across the Ukrainian steppe in an instant. The plan was to begin with Humvee vehicles infiltrating the area, approaching from the southwest rather than the north, as the Koreans expected, establishing close contact and launching an assault on the base. Then, a fire call would be issued to disable the Koksan artillery from a distance. When the vehicles entered 3 kilometers inside the border, a Private 2 mini drone attached to one of the Humvees took off in bright light. During its 20-minute flight, it scanned the route and confirmed the expected minefield. Among the detected devices were a TM-62 pressure mine, 2 OZM-72 bouncing mines, and 3 PFM-1S plastic butterfly mines. The Humvee drivers had to adjust the route. Thanks to the V-plates, the vehicle had a high chance of withstanding the mine, but if the tires were punctured, speed would decrease, and the surprise advantage would be lost. Instead of taking a shortcut, the Humvee drivers stopped early and deployed the tracked mini-robot. The tracked robot conducted a lidar scan for the next 50 meters, marking the TM-62 extending in front of the pressure plate with a red line. One of the Ukrainian drivers steered the Humvee slightly to the left and proceeded over a dirt embankment made of tree roots. Just as it was about to clear the embankment, a PFM-1S butterfly mine struck the rear right tire, causing a thin flute-like explosion. The tire sidewall split open, but the run-flat ring was embedded in the rim. The vehicle continued on its way. After the jolt, everyone held their breath as the vehicle stabilized with a slight drift to the left rear. The commando unit inside the Humvee proceeded smoothly along the rest of the road. The other Humvee that followed passed without encountering any obstacles. Half a kilometer before reaching the scene, the engines of the Humvees were shut off. Both vehicles were driven into the shade of trees and concealed with camouflage netting. The Ukrainian commandos silently opened the doors. A few soldiers took cover behind a nearby embankment. A Ukrainian commando moved away from the Humvee and fired a GM-94 pump-action grenade launcher with a 43mm 6-round capacity from inside the embankment. The embankment was a deep, L-shaped trench we referred to as the trench line. The Ukrainian commando threw 4 CS gas grenades, which landed in the trench, sending white smoke billowing upward. The Koreans' eyes began to burn, and they got up and fled. However, one of the Ukrainian commandos had been wounded. It turned out that this soldier was the one who had fired the grenade launcher. Later, another Ukrainian commando took the grenade launcher and continued to drive the North Koreans away. The highest-ranking vehicle commanders in both Humvees ordered their teams to split into 2 flanking positions. The Ukrainian commandos surrounding the North Korean soldiers would also protect the sides of the Humvees. At the height of the attack, the North Korean soldiers immediately sought to respond to the Ukrainian commando unit approaching in the Humvee vehicles. The North Korean group relayed coordinates to the M1989 Koksan battery via radio and launched a small cargo drone of the DJI type. The drone aimed to mark the Ukrainian team from above. However, the Rada-Cube radar signal on the Humvees detected it, and the ECM tower applied jamming at 1.5 GHz. As a result, the video from the drone used by the North Korean soldiers became distorted. One of the Ukrainian commandos who had disembarked from the Humvees located the drone's fuselage with a scoped rifle and shot it down with a single shot. Nevertheless, the Koreans had likely provided the coordinates. The Koksan gun fired 2 rounds at a rate of 1 per minute. The first round created a 30-meter crater near the trench abandoned by the Strela 9. Shrapnel struck the side armor of one of the Humvees. Meanwhile, one of the Ukrainian commandos was doing a good job with his HK-416 on the right flank. 5 North Korean infantrymen, their positions hidden behind a gas screen, were firing blindly with Type 58 rifles. The Ukrainian commando took down 2 North Korean soldiers with short bursts of fire and scattered the other 3. 2 Ukrainian commandos on the left flank advanced in coordinated fashion. One took out a Korean carrying a DP-64 with a QBU-10, while the other neutralized the assistant next to the North Korean soldier with an HK-416. Panicking in the center of the trench, the Korean commander fired 3 shots into the air with a Makarov pistol, which his remaining men probably mistook for a signal to attack. The entire 25-person group jumped out of the bushes. However, at that very moment, a continuous stream of 50 rounds erupted from the M2A1 in one of the Humvees. The bullet wave pinned the amateur defense line formed by the Korean soldiers to the ground. Then the Skovorota robot advanced, approached the trench corridor with a thermobaric M397 bomb in its hand, and rolled the bomb inside. The pressure buildup inside collapsed the tunnel walls, and the last Korean still resisting was swept away by the shockwave. 4 or 5 surviving Koreans tried to flee, but there was little cover in the open terrain. A 4-rotor mini-drone took off, dropping 2 homemade fragmentation bombs from its underside. Another Korean soldier fell, and 2 surrendered. A blue plastic ID card fell from the pocket of one of the surrendered soldiers. The ID revealed that the soldier was a field service technician with the Korean People's Army's 7th Artillery Brigade. One of the Ukrainian commandos placed the document in a plastic bag, held it up to the camera, and labeled it with the date. Meanwhile, the Koksan battery line on the field remained in sight. The ECM of one of the Humvees detected new radio traffic from a grad battery. Radacube performed rapid triangulation, pinpointing the exact location of the gun. The Humvee's vehicle commander immediately transmitted these coordinates via the digital tactical network to the 27th Artillery Brigade's HIMARS battery. The brigade was waiting 45 kilometers behind. The launchers had already loaded 2 GMLRS missiles. 2 rockets were fired at a range of 70 kilometers. The first rocket hit the Koksan-equipped 2B-17 launcher, and the second struck a nearby ammunition truck. The massive explosion silenced the North Korean artillery within 2 minutes. Thus, the counterfire from North Korean troops in Kursk came to a complete halt. The Strela 9 team remained in the area for another 40 minutes to collect all the rounds. Vital systems were stabilized, and one of the Humvees, which was experiencing issues on the road, switched to run-flat safe mode to tolerate a tire puncture detected by its internal sensor. They withdrew at 60 kilometers per hour toward the southwest, with no Russian or North Korean reinforcements appearing along the way. This was because the Zupark 3 radars had first been jammed by ECM. They were then struck by HIMARS missiles. When the 2 Humvees returned to base, 1 Ukrainian commando was wounded and immediately taken to the emergency tent. As the vehicle entered maintenance, shrapnel that had struck the V-plate was photographed and mine fragments were removed with a saw. The armored cabin was intact, and the electronic modules were fully functional. The operation report contained only bare figures. 8 Ukrainians, 1 armored vehicle, 2 tracked robots, and 1 mini reconnaissance drone completed the mission. On the opposing side, all 25 South Korean infantrymen were neutralized. 1 Koksan gun, 1 ammunition truck, and 2 surveillance drones were destroyed. There was 1 wounded on the Ukrainian side, with no casualties. The cost was calculated as 4 CS gas grenades, 1 thermobaric bomb, and 400 rounds of ammunition. Additionally, 2 GMLRS rockets were listed. This is because Ukrainian artillery had fired their final HIMARS rounds before the operation concluded. On the Russian-Korean side, the losses included an unquantifiable moral collapse, 30 million in radar tank damage, and the cancellation of an infiltration operation. That afternoon, the skies over Kharkiv and Sumy remained silent. Because there were no more artillery pieces left to fire in the north, the rocket battery had been silenced, and the S-400 and S-300 radars had already been destroyed the previous day. North Korean steel had struck the Humvee's armor, but couldn't penetrate it. 1 vehicle, 8 men, preparation, surprise, technology, intelligence prevailed over numbers. Thus, despite being only 8 men, Ukrainian commandos managed to rout North Koreans fighting on behalf of Russia in Kursk. Thank you for watching.